Welcome to the Happy Doc, the voice of fulfilled physicians. Become a fulfilled physician. Fill yourself up with inspirational, creative, and successful individuals. It's time to be a happy doc. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited for our next guest. And what I love about this episode is this is a live episode. We literally recorded it in my living room. We had an awesome time meeting up. Dr. Neil Desai and Dr. Mike Sevilla had met up at a family medicine conference in Philadelphia. Completely random meeting. They're going to talk about it in the episode. But from that meeting, they actually came over to my house and we recorded this awesome gem for you guys today. You'll learn more about Dr. Mike Sevilla in this episode. If you want to check out more about him, go to Dr. Mike, M-I-K-E, Sevilla, SEVILLA.com to learn more about Dr. Mike Sevilla. In this episode, we talk all about creativity, social media, burnout, reclaiming your passion, reclaiming your energy, and so much more. This is a super fun episode. I actually just listened to it and took some notes, and it's hilarious and such a good time. So I hope you guys enjoy the energy we had, and you guys listen to this episode and check out Dr. Mike Sevilla to learn more. My ask of you for this week is quite simple. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It's one of the best ways to support the Happy Doc podcast. It lets us be more discoverable. It lets other people know about us. And we just want to see the comments and the love, and we sincerely appreciate it. Enjoy the episode for today. Hello, everyone. This is a very unusual episode. To start us off, a very strange episode because this is actually being recorded live right now. This is the Happy Doc podcast. I'm super excited for our guests and team with us. I feel like this is going to be a team episode, really. We got Dr. Mike Sevilla and Dr. Neil Desai. They came over for a family medicine conference. They're up here in Philadelphia. Totally random how they came across each other. I'll let them explain that, but I'm just absolutely excited for them to be here today, and I'm going to pass on the microphone to them. So here's Mike Sevilla.
Hey, Dr. Mike Sevilla, drmikesevilla.com. Sorry about that. So I will talk like this now. We could edit that out right later. So totally random. So I was in line to get my badge for this family medicine conference that I'm at, and I heard this voice behind me. He says, Mike. And so it's Neil. And that happened a few hours ago. We've been talking ever since then, and it's been so much fun. We'll get into it, but that's kind of a little introduction for me.
Hey, it's Neil here. What's up, guys? Is that better? Yeah. Okay. Technical difficulties. All right. We're figuring the technical aspects of this, so we want to make sure it's cool that you can hear it and see it appropriately. So anyway, yeah. So like Mike was saying, it's so funny because it's like everything we talk about on the podcast over the last 2.5 years is like literally happened in the last like 6 hours. So the whole point was that, like, yeah, like Mike said, I saw him, I noticed, I was like, hey, that's Mike Sevilla. Like, I noticed that. And then I was like, hey, Mike, and he turned over. I was like, we've kind of connected online, and I've written about him for our blog for the Happy Dog. And I said, he said, hey, you want to go hang out? So we did, got to shooting the stuff, and then I'll keep it. Okay. Shooting the shit. All right. I wasn't sure. Like, are we G-rated? What rated level are we here?
You can drop the S bomb.
Okay, the S. We'll stop at the S. So yeah, we started shooting the shit and having just hanging out, getting to know each other a little better. And then I said, hey, you need to meet Taylor. And I was like, what are your plans for this evening? And I said, I'm going to meet up Taylor for dinner. And he was like, oh no, I want to meet him. I'm like, cool, let's make it happen. And then the whole point of what we talk about, serendipity at scale, starting to create a creative endeavor that leads you to crazy shit and crazy opportunities and serendipity in real life spaces. And here we are. So we're living that out ourselves. Taylor.
So I'm going to start off this little group session here. So Mike Sevilla, again, I've actually wanted to have you on the podcast for a while, like literally no joke, probably for the last couple of years, because I knew about you from the beginning of this journey. But we actually grabbed some dinner together, and it was really great to talk to you because you talked about how your life changed a lot through the process of getting involved with things like social media. So I'd like actually us to start a little bit before that. A lot of people have this sort of creative calling or something that gets them, interested in the world of artistry or creativity or something like that. Was there something in your childhood or growing up that you were just inspired to do or wanted or was part of your creative life?
So my parents are from the Philippines, and so a lot of Filipino kids probably can relate to playing some kind of instrument growing up. So my instrument was piano, and so that started some creative, juices flowing for many, many years, and then kind of went away from that. But part of our conversation tonight is we're trying to find creativity again. And a lot of it, especially for me, kind of like a little self-discovery process last few hours is that, just all this talk about burnout and all that stuff. And I went through that even back in medical school. I just didn't even know it until like discovering it with these gentlemen here. And I don't want to open a whole nother can of worms, but for me, the whole medical education process and all that really, I think, drove the creativity out of me. And it's only through social media, just within the past 10 years, where it's really, really come back to really creating things. And, that is really what is battling my physician burnout right now is creating things using social media. I know we'll probably get into it more, but that's kind of the nutshell thing as far as rediscovering the creativity within me.
Yeah. And so for people that don't know Mike Sevilla, he actually, again, at dinner had discussed kind of his story. And I think it's really fascinating because now it's 2019. And even during that conversation we had, things have changed where I felt comfortable putting out a podcast. I was a little bit nervous, but I knew in the grand scheme of things it was probably going to be okay. But as we kind of got in the conversation earlier today, going back even 10 years, it was much more restrictive. And, so I would love if you could kind of paint a picture of how did it feel to try to think about doing something creative, but knowing that it might hurt you? Like, what was the atmosphere of the medical culture at the time that you were starting to do something creative?
Oh, well, I mean, Neil and I talked about this all day today in that for me, and probably for a lot of people, because we had long discussions about this, is that the medical education process, the curriculum really just beats you down to really make you a conformist and not creativity at all. And it really just kind of strips it out of you, beats it out of you. And it's not until now looking back, like, oh, that's why I do what I'm told. And that's why I didn't even think about doing anything creative, because I was told what to do as far as what to study, what tests, all that stuff. And I couldn't think about anything else. I couldn't do anything else because that was my goal. And if I didn't meet that goal, then, I would be, especially with Asian parents, kind of like being seen as a failure and not finishing medical school. And, and just a little bit of my upbringing. My dad's a surgeon. And when I went to started medical school, I wanted to be a surgeon and take over his practice. And that didn't happen. And I'm in primary care, but, is in my parents' mind. I mean, I'm a failure because I didn't do exactly what he did and all the intricacies with that. And I don't want to get into too much detail, but as far as creativity, I mean, it was beat out of me, but now I've just kind of I've had it come back now, and I'm really, really happy about that. So I don't know if we reflect on anything on that or.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. Yes. Is this good? So one of the things that just to kind of add on to what Mike was saying is same thing for me, Asian parents, Indian immigrant parents. And one of the things that you have these expectations. And I think what we talked about a lot was getting lost in the shoulds. So, the shoulds from our parents, our expectations from our Asian, like anyone, like just tight knit families, and they have these high expectations. And whether it's this, Chase talked about this in the last episode, we get lost in the shoulds. You should become a doctor. You should, and then it was for me, it was like, you should specialize, or you should do this, or marry that person, or you shouldn't do like art or creative talents. That's a waste of time, and you're not focused. Right. And that is kind of what Mike was saying also, is that it gets beaten into us. If you are doing these things outside of the box, outside of our silos, this is what Chase says, it is a threat to the system, because it is a threat to rigid, hierarchical, traditional thinking and traditional systems, because the truth is that's actually a threat, but it's also because it exposes them also too for their flaws and weaknesses. And the people that are in charge or in power, that is a threat to those people in charge. My thing is that, like, what I want is for people, and what we're learning here is that leveraging their individual creativity to regain their autonomy and their excitement and their fulfillment and their energy to be in alignment with who they truly are. Listen to their 8-year-old self. What do I really want to do? Not what game do I really want to play? Like, if you're playing the wrong game and the wrong position in the wrong game, you're at some point you're gonna fail. You're not gonna be in alignment in what you truly want, and then you're gonna be like 12 years into this game. What am I doing? And I think this happened to me and Mike and you, Taylor, and that kind of shifted us to really find our true game and our true position, and get in alignment in what our true calling is, and kind of pursue that calling.
So along the lines of what Neil said, I think there's a beautiful follow-up question here is, Mike, you had a story about you starting to find that creativity and that calling again after your creativity was beaten out of you in the medical process and through your practicing and all of those things. First off, what did you do? Because I think your story is awesome. And then second, how did it feel to start to get back to that creative path?
So the way I found my way back was to basically social media. And this is social media in the mid 2000s. So this was, pre-Twitter, pre-Facebook time frame. And for people who are familiar with Kevin MD, when he just kind of started his website, I'm like, oh, I think I can maybe do that too. But I didn't want to be all the way out there and attach my name like I do now. So, I started blogging, which was, very popular back then with the physician community. But there was this huge anonymous physician blogger community out there. And I had the very creative name of Dr. Anonymous, which is still there on Blogger. And you can go and check that out. And what did I do then? So what I did was I vented, because that made me feel better. I did talk about patients. I talked about insurance companies, all that stuff, which I don't recommend now, but that was the culture back then. So what happened? So advance a few months later, or a couple years later, there was this anonymous physician blogger who got caught blogging during his malpractice trial, which was like really great reading if you could think about it. But then he was discovered during that trial. They settled the case. His blog was gone. All the physician and honest blogger community pretty much went away. I thought about quitting. But what kept me going at that time was all these people were like, hey, we like the way you do storytelling. You're going to find a way to keep being creative. So I shifted at that point. I talked about what was in the news, hot topics, all that stuff. Advanced again a few years later. And I'm like, I don't want to be totally anonymous, but I'm not really sure I want to put my name on it yet. So I put it around my specialty, family medicine. And I had Family Medicine Rocks for .com for a number of years. And in addition to writing, I did a little bit of podcasting myself. I podcasted, interviewed my friends. They told their primary care and family medicine story. And then advance a few years later, I was just really, really burned out. I was burned out with social media. I was burned out with my job. So I quit, not my job, but I quit social media because it was not fun anymore. And I was really kind of dramatic on social media saying, I'm quitting and blah, 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 blah. And it was right at that time when my wife and I went to Alaska for a couple weeks. I unplugged. It was great. Felt really liberated at that time. Came back. And when I re-logged in, I had all these people say, oh, we missed you. If you want to come back, you don't have to podcast every week. You do whatever you want. So what I did was I came back to social media on my own terms. I write when I wanted to write. I podcast when I wanted to podcast. And then I finally made the total evolution to myself. And now it's drmikesevilla.com. And I on my own terms, came back to social media, my creativity. And now I've kind of shifted that into my work life and say, hey, I don't have to do all this stuff that all these people are expecting of me. I can try to find my own way. And finally now, I have come back to, finding my why I'm doing this. And it's not to, become famous or all that stuff. It for me, I found within my inner self, it's still taking care of patients. And what I do in my social media life, really, it's how I can take care of patients more. And that's the balance I have right at this point. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So Neil, you have anything to add right now?
Yeah. So I can add on to like my perspective, because I think Mike, we're probably the same age range. I don't want to date you or anything, but I'm in my mid-40s. I'm 46. So same thing. It was like, but the thing is, for me, it was like this tragic, life-altering kind of event of my son's diagnosis. And that it wasn't so much about, it was more an outlet to just discover what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and what I'm trying to work through. And it was never really with a goal. I think a lot of doctors or a lot of people who try to use social media, they're like, what is the strategy to get like rich or to get more likes or things? I really want to make this clear, because something we've all learned this. I think that's the wrong kind of mindset. I think what we need to reframe it is how can I leverage it as a tool to get my message out? So just as if you were in the olden days writing a newspaper column or a journal article or talking, like speaking, giving a talk, same thing. It's how you communicate your message and your story. So I think one of the things that I think it's important that we don't get caught up in the likes and the shares and the listens and the views, and just share your truth and be authentic to that. Because if you do that and you're consistent with it, just like being a doctor, day in, day out, you put the work in, all that stuff will come later on. And I think I really want to get that message out, because what happens when you start pandering to those likes and all these other things, it does the same thing it does that we are in medicine. Then you're just doing the same thing, but in a different space. You're getting burnt out in another space. When I'm like, the whole point of this is to be a creative outlet, to give you energy, to recharge you, to reconnect with yourself and with others who have similar interests. But when you reconnect with this is an outlet to kind of reconnect with yourself and who you truly are. I think, to go a little deeper, what do I really want? Not what do my parents or someone else or society or culture, but like you were saying, like Chase said, like the creativity kind of sucks that creativity and that kind of self-awareness of us out of the hierarchical structure. Yeah. And what we are advocating for, as we are living proof of this, is redefining that as a collaborative, compassionate, contextual, reconnected kind of healthcare system, educational system that really gets us energized, excited, and motivated to really do cool shit, and like just random serendipity for like just being in spaces, leveraging technology to like create cool opportunities like this. Yeah. Right.
So I want to comment on something you had said there earlier, a little bit in there, Neil, which was, you had said that when we start to pander to the likes or the shoulds or all that stuff, it really can eventually drain us. And I'm going to connect that to what Mike was saying earlier. He reached a point where it sounded like he got burnt out of the thing that was supposed to help him with his burnout. So creativity and the podcasting for me, for example, was a space where all of a sudden, we talked about this earlier, there's this obliger sort of tendency. The concept of an obliger is someone who gives to other people first and forgets about themselves. And I know that resonates with everyone who's in medical care and healthcare, because we all do it. We give ourselves so much and we drain the crap out of ourselves. Well, the creative process is this calling. It's this internal thing, whatever it is for you, that when you do that, your energy increases inside of you, right? And that's something that's supposed to feed you. But I'm going to guess with Mike's work and what he was doing, he was starting to get a little bit too caught up in the work of the thing itself, instead of asking himself, is what do I actually want to do in my creative space? And when we start to go on Instagram and post photos to get 200 plus likes, where we're out on the beach and we're smiling when really we're sad and we actually don't feel that way, or we don't really feel like taking that photo or what have you, now we're starting to pander to the likes. So I'm imagining, and he'll get to answer this in a second, but I'm imagining that part of the reason he was starting to get burnt out is he had created another job for himself where he was working for someone else, aka the likes or the people or the crowd, instead of just working for himself and doing something he actually enjoyed. And all of a sudden, when he switched it around and did it more for himself, again, reconnected to what he wanted to do, that allowed him to kind of reconnect to his creativity and then give back in a different way. Is that true for you?
Yes, absolutely. And I don't want to sit here, with all this wisdom and, think I have all this wisdom. It is because I made all those mistakes, because I really didn't know what I want. I thought I wanted the likes, and I talked to these guys earlier tonight. Like, one of my goals, early on was to be a national speaker. So I was going after those. So like, I wanted to be paid to be a speaker, and I wanted to be paid for travel. And that was a goal for a while. And then to have the likes. And when you go after that, sometimes you get it, but then after you do, does that really satisfy you? Is that really, really what you want to do? Because people ask me about this all the time. How do I get paid, or how do I get more likes, or how can I, stop seeing patients and just, be a national speaker? Like, you just have to know. And it's really hard because you don't know for a while, because we talked about this before, is like, you don't know what you don't know. But I thought I knew what I wanted to do to make a difference. And it really wasn't any of that, because I tried it and it failed, or I tried it and it wasn't what it wasn't what I thought it was on the other side. So, but there are different plans. I have people ask me all the time, how is this? But you have to know within yourself what you want to do. Do you want to try to make a lot of money? Because that's one strategy. Do you want to try to get all the likes? That's another strategy. For me, it eventually was, I still want to make a difference for my patients. And I still love the relationships with my patients. I love family medicine and the continuity and all that. For me, it really came back to that. And when I figure that out, then I can reframe my whole social media life, personal life, professional life around that. Now, is that going to be the same 5-10 years from now? I don't know. All I know is for right now. And it's really hard. You got to really have a really good insight on yourself, which sometimes can be uncomfortable and painful, but you got to find that journey. You got to find that process.
So speaking of the process and the journey, something we had talked about before is that the creative path and the creative journey is an experiential one, meaning that if you and I gave a public speech, if all of us gave a public speech and we talked about how amazing the creative journey was, starting a podcast, Neil working on the social media game and putting out, doing his connection work with all of these people, you, Mike, starting your blog and starting a podcast and starting to speak, all of that, the feeling that you get doing it is experiential, meaning, again, as we're talking about this, some people might listen to this and poo-poo it and say that, okay, that worked for you. It's not going to work for me. No, it will work for you, but there's something special and unique about you that you might need to cultivate. Let's talk about that a little bit for you, Mike. What was it experientially like when you were in the crap, when you were in a difficult time in your residency, in your attending, and you're working through the medical process and the medical system, and you started that blog and you started writing? What did that do for you?
Oh, doing that was a whole, the creativity opened up my mind in ways that it hasn't for many, many years. Because for many years I was basically told what to think and told what to feel, because that was expected of me during the matriculation or the medical education process. And I was, not allowed to go outside that box. So when I started the blog, I felt like kind of a rebel, be like, oh, like nobody's going to know about this, but the whole internet knows about this. I didn't even know. But the experience that I got, especially when I got the first, international comment on my blog, I'm like, oh, there are people who are not only reading this, but enjoying with this, connecting with this. That gave me a really great feeling to continue with that. And that was a feeling that I have not had for many years. And that was a feeling at that time to keep me going. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying that there was something, again, experientially different, that this was feeding a different part of you. And you're basically saying you're reaching parts of yourself that you hadn't been able to reach for a long time. It's almost like reconnecting to that previous self. And I mean, I can talk about this personally for me. I luckily only felt like I really lost myself for about 2 to 3 years. And then I was able to kind of reconnect in the podcasting. So I was close enough to losing myself, so to speak, but reconnecting to myself that I could see the clear difference and I could still recapture it right away. But I think the longer you go into the system, not recapturing that special place in your heart or who you were, or, that person that is creative, that isn't just logical and linear, but is also that artist, whatever the art means to you. I'm using art in a broad term here, but the closer we can stay to all of the parts of ourselves, the more we can retain our special humanity and that piece of us. And I see Neil here nodding as well. What do you have to say with that?
Yeah, I could go on this for hours, but I'll keep it short. But the whole thing is, like you guys were saying, the same thing like happened to me. Like, and I'll be honest, like I literally, until Ethan's diagnosis, like until I started blogging about it, and like I was always uncomfortable. It was a lot of noise in my head, a lot of outside voices. Doing these creative things, like I've created videos about it, YouTube videos, blogging, self-published a book, started a charity, doing Facebook groups for support groups. We've been on podcasts, doing all this stuff kind of really kind of like it got me quiet in my head, and it tuned out all those other voices so I could hear my inner voice, like, dude, you're good at this, like writing, connecting, this is your thing. And then when I started listening to that, it was like this opposite, like flywheel kind of, anti-imposter syndrome, cure or preventive vaccine for like burnout. And it just was this compounding effect. And I started, instead of the opposite thing that happens to us during training, we've all gone through this, the hazing, the hazing, the kind of belittling, the pimping, all that stuff. This was the opposite. I was actually like, wait, people actually appreciate me for giving my medical opinion on things, and I can make mistakes, but they don't judge me. It's like they're okay. They're forgiving. But they appreciate the time, effort, and energy I'm putting into this. And I'm leveraging my degree in medical training that I put into. It was like, this is what I became a doctor for. And then I feel better as a human, and I'm really connected to my purpose, my calling, reconnected, like you said. And that was like a big unlock, because then it's like for the first time I felt like I was being a doctor, like Mike said, and we had this conversation for the first time in my life. And this took 39 years to get here. But in the first time, I didn't know what it was, but I was bit by that bug, and I was like, wait a second. I don't know what this is. It's like I got bit by a radioactive spider, but all of a sudden I told him, I said, it's the equivalent of like getting bit by a radioactive spider, and you're going through all this pain. You don't know what's happening to you. But after a few years, when you learn to channel that pain and that energy, all of a sudden that becomes a superpower. And now all of a sudden you feel like literally like you have a superpower. This is what I do.
And you call your oxygen now, right?
Yeah, and it's my oxygen. Yeah.
So I love this conversation. Kind of to round out this part of it, you know, all three of us here sitting here have really, whether it's podcasting, blogging, social media, connecting, you know, and there's so many other parts to us as well. I think all of us would argue, number one, it's allowed us to reconnect to ourselves. Number two, it's given us more energy in our own, you know, capacities and ways. And number three, I think we would all agree too, it's helped with patient care. I feel like I am better able to connect, you know, everyone's nodding here. I'm better able to connect with my patients because I have taken care of my humanity piece. So I think, you know, one thing we would, emphasize here is just the importance of this creation. It doesn't have to be in social media, but whatever it is that fires you up, gets you excited, that has nothing to do with medicine. It could involve medicine, but tangentially, like what's something like that's just cool and fun and interesting that you do that you can reconnect with. It's just so important. To pivot a little bit here, you know, all of us are kind of excited about the entrepreneurial journey. We're excited about, you know, things that are up and coming, in the world right now. It can be a person, it could be a technology, but what is something or who is someone that you're, what is something you're looking forward to or you're following or trending right now that gets you excited? You can take a moment to think about it. Could be a person, it could be a technology, something that you really enjoyed. I can actually hop into this first one. For me personally, it's voice technology, and we've had this a lot on the podcast, but the power of voice has been something that is really interesting. And one of the ways I like to talk about it with people that aren't familiar is basically the fact that you're listening to this means that information is being transmitted through voice, and think about the speed at which voice travels. So anytime, you know, you're asking your parent or your friend for something, that's the same type of thing that you can do with voice technology. So, more than ever, understanding the impact of this stuff like Alexa and Google Home and all that stuff is really important to think about. And one of the reasons we started to create, you know, technology in the space with like MedFlash Go. But Neil, you had something?
So
Could be a person too.
yeah, so it's definitely like voice technology. You know, obviously there's a couple things, but I mean, I would say there's so many people in the voice space. Yeah. Dr. Terry Fisher, you know, these other guys that we've met or like hung out with. But I think part of the reason that it gets me excited is because this is going to be really meta, but like it literally gives us our voice back in healthcare. Yeah. You know, Kevin MD has said like, oh, the voice, I'm like, this is literally giving us a literal voice to not only reclaim autonomy, but to reclaim agency, direction. And like, because we all complain about the electronic health records, but our thing is more, instead of complaining about stuff, this is practical solutions that it's intuitive. And it's like when everyone knows about dictating notes. But the thing is just practical applications in the OR, like, you know, setting timers or like bringing up path reports.
Or using the voice tech, or using or using the voice. Imagine like the surgeon's in there and he's like, you know, doing his thing and he's like, oh, next song. Yes. You know, like seriously, because, you know, a lot of the surgeons, they have like favorite music. They have their favorite music in the room, and it's just like, all right, I'm done with this. Let's go to hip hop, right? And then boom, it switches. Little stuff like that. I mean, little nuances, little fun things like that go a really long way. The other person we were talking about earlier was like Gary Vaynerchuk. That's a big inspiration for all of us. Like Mike, what has listening to Gary done for you? Like, have you?
Well, I mean, we've talked before in that, you know, in medicine, and we tend to stay in our own box, in our own industry, in our own echo chamber. And through the years, I've enjoyed reading and listening to things that are not medicine related, you know, like entrepreneur or business books, that type of thing. And Gary really sparks that entrepreneurial spirit. We've talked before that, you know, things that get me excited are things that enhance my skills. And something that I really try to focus on is my communication skills. So I've been focusing on lately, video communication. So I've been experimenting a little bit, with video blogging or Facebook Live or TikTok or things that, that are short form, that are long form, things that I can edit myself, things I can get help with, or ways that I can even do traditional things like traditional TV interviews and all that space. That's what's exciting me. Those are the things that I'm working on right now. As far as how can I do the video type of communication, especially when it comes to patient communication or patient education. So that's what's exciting me right now. But yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. I mean, anytime I'm like having a rough day, I'm like, I put one of his videos and I'm like, yes, I can keep going, because, if people don't know Gary V, you just Google him. You can find him. I mean, the guy has so much energy, but he makes you think. He makes you think about yourself. He makes you not only think about business, but really think about yourself. That's part of how I got to my own insight, because he's asking these questions and just think about them. And not only do they affect your business, but they can affect your life. So it definitely has made a big impact for me.
And a lot of times people ask, I feel like, you're starting to mention the videos and TikTok and all this stuff. They're like, how do you have the time? How do you have the time? And I think the way I answer that is like, this isn't like a time question. This is fun. Like, instead of watching Game of Thrones, I'm doing this. Are you watching Netflix? Are you scrolling through your phone? Are you like, sitting down and I don't know, like hanging out and doing whatever? Like this is the hobby. This is fun. And so like when you reconnect to that passion that's fun and creative and also gives, like that's like huge. Like that's like something that's really special. And so, Mike talking about TikTok and these video programs and all that stuff, it's fun for him. And he's nodding here. Like this is just, it's not wasting time. It's fun, creative learning time. It's like a curriculum that like is natural for you. It's like, yeah, we call it the hidden curriculum. Personally, that's like the term we've always used is the hidden curriculum. It's your human curriculum that's prescribed internally that no one else can find for you. It's hidden inside of you. So that's what we always call it. But yeah, I mean, like when you're talking about this, like everyone, like this isn't something that needs to be hard. It can be 5 minutes a day. It can be 10 minutes a day. And maybe after a while, it might be an hour a day. And then, yeah, go on.
So yeah, it's funny that they look at it like how do you have the time? But it's in that kind of like, what's the ROI on this? What am I getting out of this? Am I wasting my time? I'm like, do you waste your time when you go swimming or go for a run or like, I mean, you're doing it. It's not like they want like immediate, like it's intangible. You've used this word before. They're intangible. You can't see it right now, but the stuff that you do early, plant the seeds, invisible staircase, is the long-term ROI. This episode doesn't exist unless we were doing the stuff that we were doing, right?
So,
right.
So, and this speaks to here's the big thing, guys. Not to get too meta on this podcast episode and us hanging out here. But us all working on our creativities, me, Mike, Neil here, is the only reason that somewhere in this universe we all smashed together and sat here today. The fact that us individually, the fact that I was really burnt out and depressed as a med student and decided to start a podcast, the fact that Neil had lost his passion and discovered the fire within him with Ethan's osteogenesis imperfecta diagnosis and starting, everything they did with the charity and his work on the book and all that. The fact that Mike, was really exhausted and decided, that he needed to do something creative and start a vent with the Dr. Anonymous blog. All of those little steps we each took is the only reason we're sitting here on this couch with this bootleg microphone right now, right? We have, by the way, we all have literally 3 cameras going at the same time. Yep. It's the only reason, and this is the beauty of the social media, digital to physical connection game that we have right now. I think that's crazy. Mike, have you had any of these other digital social media to physical connections happen?
Excuse me. Well, not as random as this. I can tell you that. But I mean, everybody on social media, they've had a story of, connecting with somebody, especially like at a conference or if they're on vacation or something like that. And we've talked, tonight, the social media, really gets you through those awkward type of introductions and things. And then when you meet in person, you just start, just talking.
How natural was today with us meeting?
Oh yeah. It was, oh yeah.
Family or something.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's great. It's great. And it's just, but as we talked, before too, is that, it's all about the in-person human interaction and connection. Social media can start to get you there, but where you really make a real connection, can go deeper, as far as discussions and connecting is gotta be in person, right, Neil?
Yeah, I got a great point. So here's the thing. I was telling Mike about this earlier, and I think I've told Taylor about this. I think social media is a misnomer. I'm going to blow your all minds right now. Here we go, because we're doing this. Let's blow your minds. It's not social media. It's media to be social in real spaces to make meaningful connections. Can I drop my mic now?
Hey, my mic. He can't drop that mic. It's my. I just bought this mic. I know. Yeah, no, and it's so true. And this is, and that's why we got to be really careful. The digital space is a supplement. If we let this tool, if it's a bridge, right? And if we let this supplement or bridge control us, we're letting it control us. And so we obviously have to be careful. That this topic could be its whole other conversation. I'm not trying to get into that space right now, but needless to say, it is a beautiful tool, and it's allowed us to meet really great people. Like, for me personally, I would have never imagined having that interview with Chase Jarvis. And I would honestly imagine, I would say he's one of the top people I would want to sit at a table with to have a conversation with. And we did that. And it's you can't imagine, just to kind of round this out, you can't imagine the opportunities that occur when you just put yourself out there. Mike, since, you're here in my, humble abode here, very, very humble. Let's be honest here. Humble abode here. What are some lessons or thoughts, like, looking at your journey that you'd like to impart, especially for a podcast? Like, any thoughts or anything you'd like to add?
Well, I mean, what I want to tell people, and what I hope people get out of this, is that, it's not all about, laughing and, all joking around and stuff. I mean, each of us had our journey, and you have your journey out there, and you're in your journey right now, and for people who want to take initial steps on creativity, to try to find some creativity is the first step I tell people is, it's going to be hard. You got to look within yourself to see where are you at right now, and sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes, it may be painful, but that's part of the journey. It's for some people, it's got to get a little tougher before it gets a little bit better. But find those things that, make you crazy, that you're passionate about, that you can talk about, or you can express or create. And then you take the next step, you try to connect with other people who have similar interests, and then you use that synergy to drive yourself to even be more creative and to make more connections. But, the first step is just doing it. Don't think about doing it. Don't plan about doing it. We've all thought about, we should do that. All getting back to the shoulds. We should do this. We should plan. We should plan more. No, just do it. Just do it. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn from your mistakes. I guess the other thing too is if you can try to find somebody in that space or like a mentor or something like that can help guide you or give you some initial steps along the way. Try to find that. You're not going to be able to find that always. It's always kind of like inner insight and trying to find your own way there. But if you're, can find a mentor, that is a great place to kind of add to your journey.
So, 2 quick questions to round this out for today. Mike, first off, thank you so much, for your time. It's absolutely amazing to have you in person. Question number 1, how do people find you? How do they reach out to you?
So, you can just find drmikesevilla.com, or you can just Google my name. You're going to have, I think I have the first 15 pages on Google. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. So drmikesevilla.com. Please reach out to me. Would love to have a conversation with you. Thank you guys just for this opportunity just to talk with you. I know this is going to be the start of something great as far as more fun and more interactions and more creativity. Very, very fun for me.
Absolutely. I mean, there's certain people you just meet up with them and it just feels so natural. And I feel like it really was like that for us. I felt like we just could hang out. And so I really appreciate you coming in. And I know absolutely it's going to turn out for us to have more creative opportunities. Maybe we should do like a TikTok combo at some point. But, I'm really interested in TikTok actually. Final question, I have an audience and there's myself and Neil here. How do we help serve you and your mission?
I think it's by just finding common ground, finding common goals, how we can build our own synergy together. We all have our stronger points and we can work together. For me is how can we empower other people to find their own journey? Because I would love to have similar conversations to what you guys have today, with other people out there who we don't even know yet. That is the fun. And that is the fun with social media, traditional media, to reach those people and for them to reach back to us. So my goal is to work with you guys to help maybe even reach some of your audience, or you can help with some of my audience, build that synergy, and basically just have a lot of fun doing it.
So it's so funny you said that because I heard that from another guest before, but it's you want to empower people to empower people. And there's something so beautiful about that. That's actually the mission of the Happy Doc. It's to inspire one physician to inspire thousands, right? So help a healer and you help thousands. And I think that's really what we're doing is we're inspiring healers and really great positive people, empowering people to empower people. And so I think, I really truly believe this, even in some weird way, this conversation's helping the world. So, yeah.
I got one more thing. Absolutely. I'm going to put this out there. The live Happy Doc podcast somewhere with a huge studio audience. I mean, other than the creepy guy who's looking in your window right now. But other than that, I'm putting that out there. The live Happy Doc podcast. What about that?
I actually said that too.
So, yes. All right, you guys heard it first. Neil probably said it first, but Mike Sevilla said it first on the podcast, Neil. He reinforced it. Mike Sevilla, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Really appreciate you being here and being at Happy Doc HQ. No big deal. And we're gonna roll out for today. Thank you guys for listening today and have a great one. Woo! Yeah. See, this is the live energy, baby. That's how we do. We out.
If this episode provided you any value, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It's one of the best ways to support us. Please check out MedFlashGo. MedFlashGo is the first voice-based interactive medical question bank for medical students. It helps students study on the go using Amazon Alexa. To learn more, check out medflashgo.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Happy Doc podcast. I wish you an amazing day.